Costa, thank you so much for this great invitation and for organizing this thought-provoking event. As you know, the key message to convey from today's discussion is about the benefits of working together to promote aviation in a sustainable and resilient manner. And it's a great pleasure to have 4 panelists with us today, representing different organizations, and we're going to discuss about this idea of coming together, how we can possibly overcome the difficulties that we faced in the past and move forwards in a successful manner. So, starting with you, Mr. Mindrescu, would you like to share with us your vision, the industry's vision about air transport development in Romania, and how you can bring the different stakeholders together?
Of course. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you. It's a pleasure and honor for me to be here. I'd like to thank Kostas. I consider him a close friend of mine. And because of that I'm here, and also I consider all of us that are inside this room, we are colleagues. This is how I see the things. Even if some of our colleagues are having bigger experience, I'm always happy to have someone from whom I can learn some. From my point of view, and in Romania, we are looking forward for the development of aviation. First of all, I have next to me the CEO from the Athens airport. So I was also a CEO of the national airport company in Romania in 2007-2018. And it's something very challenging from my point of view to handle that. We are at this moment we need to put in front the safety. This is my point of view. Safety is first for everyone, and when we come and talk about aviation, first position is safe and safety. Everything after that is below. So, but to have this safe and also to have safety, you need to have investments. So in that manner, at this moment we are financing from EU on the last exercise with the 2014-2020, that it's N+3 until 2023, the end of this year. At this moment we are having contracts of over €1 billion in airport infrastructure. From my point of view, if we are here, we need to think forward how we can come to the Commission to push so we can obtain forward financing. As all of us know from this room, is not the aviation sector is not financeable anymore by the EU Commission. It's a decision took by the consideration that aviation growing is very, it's a high growing yearly, as the speaker before me said that it's not the president, the CEO from the CA from Greece, the general director. It's you know, it's before now we overcome the expectation of traffic that we have after the pandemic, and now it crossed over the expectation. Yes, so to succeed to accommodate more passengers, you need infrastructure. To give safe, you need infrastructure, good quality infrastructure. For that you need money. This is very important. So from my point of view, unfortunately, the decision of the Commission, I don't know how we can go forward and we can explain that the aviation sector and aviation infrastructure needs more investments. For sure, it's going to be need more investment in the future. Of course, we can apply and we can go aside on, we can take money from modernization fund and so on what means reducing the CO2 emission, but it's not enough. Talking about also about the president of ICAO, he talked remote, so I feel the necessity to talk about remote towers. You see We break the ice. We have one remote tower in our country. It's a pilot project, and I believe we can exchange experience and information in this domain. I want to congratulate both directors from CA Romania and also Romața that is sending the navigation. Is the company that is making navigation, and they succeeded to implement the first remote tower in Europe. We are intending, and now we are making studies and analyses to go forward and to extend this network. You see, aviation, it's more than dynamic, as all of us knows from here, because I believe it's a point that brings us all here. It's that we fall in love with aviation. This is the way I like to say. I'm also a pilot, and I'm more than in love by aviation. You see, it's the necessity of every man and every people, doesn't matter who, that want to go from point A to point B faster and faster. Also, it's the society that is pushing us daily. Everything is changing, and is changing with a tremendous speed. So we need to accommodate this in real time and to face this problem. So from my point of view, there are some things that we cannot stop them. It's like the digitalization part, and we need to handle them, to face them. You see any problem in life, from my point of view, if you are running with it, it's going to chase you. If you are turning around and you are facing it, you're going to stop it. Also, the problem solved for yourself. It's the same thing that we need to do, from my point of view, in our mission, and what means also aviation. These are one of the 2 or 3 pylons that is based aviation from my point of view. But the bottom, I'm also handling special projects of infrastructure, not only aviation. From naval part to railway part and so on, I succeed to retrieve money from addressing fund for railway part, for example. But this is the ground. We need to find financing for development. This is the ground, this is the base for anything that we want to go forward. For that, I'm asking you, if we are here and it's a possibility to think, and also I'm asking Costas to think of the solution to go to the commission and to go to be more, because when you are more powerful. Yes, and to go and to find a solution to be financed. Because otherwise, the time is passing by and the things are evaluating, and we won't gonna keep the step with the time, and not gonna come in front of our face. This is gonna be the biggest problem. From also, as a side of this, I won't gonna talk anymore long because I don't like to talk much. I'm a reaction guy more. I found a very big problem in what means specialists in aviation, especially in maintenance part. Yes, and I negotiated with the commission to make an excellence center and also developing center. I started with the idea from aviation, but I extended to all transport domains because I'm close to all of them. They're close to my heart, but the closest one is aviation. I recognize that. And it's a very big problem, this, because as all of us know, we cannot find any more specialists for maintenance for the airplanes, and not only for the infrastructure of the airports and so on, because there are not so many places they can be prepared for. So I believe also this is a thing that I want to raise to Costas, to think about it, to come together and to put our forces together, because only together we can succeed. This is my point of view. No one can succeed alone, and if he succeeds, he's going to succeed for a short time, if you want to go alone. It's more easy to go alone, but it will be more harder as much as you are progressing, it will be harder. So this is my opinion at this moment. aviation, it was, is, and gonna be one of the most important part of the society. Even if we like it or not, even if we understand it or not. If you see at every airport, and I believe here my colleague gonna agree with me, I was telling to my colleagues that I'm not running airport. I was feeling, when I was the CEO of the airport, I felt like a mayor. You see, it's like a small town or a bigger town, depends on the surface of the airport, because indirect and direct involved personnel, it's a huge number of personnel that is working in the airport, and not only in the airport and aside. And also that comes with aviation, and also all the work that is made by the civil aviation authorities that are making the regulation, everything, and also by the navigant personnel, by the specialists that are making navigation and so on. I like to consider aviation as a big family. But this comes to us how we can understand each other and how we can promote and to let this legacy forward. It's very important what we leave behind, not what we find. It's important to understand what we find, so we can let something behind us, to let this, if I can say like that, legacy between the lines. That should be very healthy and based on strength principles. This is my point of view.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Coming to you, Mr. Lambiris, as the chairman of Athens International Airport. We know that the airport has always been a pioneer in forging partnerships. A great example is the Athens-Turin partnership, where we joined forces with Aegean Airlines, the Athens Destination Management Authority. So what's your vision about partnerships, and how do you think that we can bring all the stakeholders together to alleviate problems such as the unfortunate decision taken by the Commission, for example?
Okay, I think partnerships is everything, so to speak. Just picking up on one of the points the Minister made about financing, because then from a financial background I'm very astute to this. You will have seen that the CEO of Airbus actually went to the EU and said, guys, in more or less terms, if you don't finance us, if you don't give us some grants, we will not be able to build the new A320, A321. So it's very important to get the public sector involved to finance projects. And Airbus itself is a big partnership, right? So it just shows how important it is. I don't think we can do it on our own. Again, the Minister said it, we need to do it all together. I think in aviation, there's two main problems. One, it's very siloed, so there's very many organizations, and there's no true leadership, right? There's no, the big organizations, they need to show leadership, they need to pull every single entity together to move towards this target and create the partnerships and foster these partnerships which are required to get to the end game. I mean, sustainability obviously is at the forefront. Salvatore said, we had a good win in CAF 3 in Abu Dhabi. That was a good step, but again, it was watered down because there was the various interests of the various parties, the various countries. Again, only not getting as fast as we should. And that's because, in my view, we don't really have the leadership we need. We need really big organizations to come together, and I think this is something which, there's the AF trying to do this, bring everyone together and go to the target. And, when you think of it, aviation is something that is close to the heart of everyone. Everyone likes to travel. Most people use aviation, and I think we have not hit on that point to try and help the industry move forward, right? So I don't know, maybe it's getting nice socks like my friend here Jeff and putting it in schools and stuff to promote aviation. I don't know what the solution is, but what I think we need to do is come out, explain how important aviation is, bring the stakeholders together, and in particular I think IFATSEA and the Airport Association, they need to come together, go to ICAO, build this up, and then get the other stakeholders aligned. And that's building these partnerships, how we get forward and we'll meet our emission targets, which are very, very stringent. I've could not agree more with the minister. There's a complete disconnect between the amount of money that the EU has imposed on the industry and what the industry and the private sector are willing to pay based on, you know, returns and everything. It's just not going to work. The sooner we understand this, the sooner, you know, there's a balance between risk and return, the sooner we create this partnership, the sooner we'll be able to discuss about the sustainable future and, you know, getting aviation on the right footing, which it should be.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Coming to UB Securities, you represent a major organization in aviation. I would say it's synonymous to safety to a great extent. And that's also an issue picked up by the minister because underfunding can sometimes lead to great risks regarding safety. So I would like your views on that and how we can actually build a strong narrative to persuade the stakeholders that unless they invest in a safe future, there is no future at all.
Thank you very much, Andrea. By starting, I would like to thank Kostas once again and Herbert for accommodating me in the panel here and this important event. I just came back from Brussels, where we had all the professional staff organizations, the engineers, the IFATSEA, the ADCOs, and the information specialists. We had a meeting with the Commission and Eurocontrol exactly on the issue of the human factor in the paradigm shift that we're undergoing at the moment. The Minister mentioned earlier the lack of people, that rather the need for more people, like in the air navigation services that we look after, and the market which is attracting those specialists, and they cannot join and they're not interested in joining the air navigation services. As I represent the engineers and the technical staff on the air navigation services, I like to say that we contribute to the performance of the whole chain, aviation chain if you like, the ecosystem, by extending the continuity of the systems and services of the air navigation part and minimizing the recovery time when it comes to recovering any heavy-degraded mode. Now, as we know, in Europe we have CESAR. CESAR is a major research project that, as far as I remember, because I've been following it since 2005, it talks about an investment, which is a shared investment of 2.5 billion euros. Now, looking at it from a practical point of view, you need to implement, to deploy all these new technologies that will bring a performance benefit, including the environment, as the President of ICAO mentioned, and at the same time maintain what is really in existence. So we have now a problem here. We have the same number of people, and we have the legacy systems to maintain the current performance levels, and we have to implement new concepts like the remote towers the Minister mentioned earlier. Now, whenever you are to implement a major change like this in terms of new technologies or of a proven technology like remote towers, which is relatively new, you have to start up with a business plan, okay, or based on the ATN master plan, you come up with operational requirements from the state, and that translates into technical specifications that are produced from our experts. But whenever you are to implement a major change, you need the people who will look after the existing equipment, systems, and at the safety level, of course, and on the other side, implement and deploy the new technologies. Okay? Now, the roadmap for implementing CESAR technologies, let's say it's up to 2035. However, I'm in a position to know that in many European states, as well as in Africa, there is a lack of interest of young specialists, because what are we talking about now? We're talking about digitalization, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about automation, and you need people who can look after these systems. And what I actually mean is that when the system enters in a degraded mode, they have to be in a position to recover as quickly as possible. Because the impact on the whole aviation ecosystem is going to be huge. Now, people are not young people. My son is one of them. And I work for the Greek Hansper for the past 38 years, but he's not interested. He says, I'll go somewhere else where I have better job security and I have no responsibility because the engineers in the air navigation systems, are directly connected to liability whenever an accident happens. Okay? So why should I go and be underpaid, if you like, work 24/7, work shifts, work nights, And sometimes in airports we don't have all the facilities when I can get a better job. And on top of that, we have a very specific problem. I won't touch on the artificial intelligence part or automation, but I will touch on cybersecurity. And the salary for a cybersecurity expert is in some countries 10 times as much as an advocate's. So, and I have already recorded this argumentation, if you like, and some of the ways to address it in an article that Kostas, who is going to publish, he has already published it, on attracting and retaining high caliber personnel. And that is engineering personnel as far as I'm concerned. I think that we have to look into it and try to make it attractive, more attractive, in any possible way. I've listed them all, career plans, better reimbursement, better salaries, better training, and something that we always, and I close with this, something that it is so implicit for every one of us, I will forget it, the appreciation of the job. Because you don't see the engineers unless something bad happens and they haven't been managed, able to manage it, okay? Eurocontrol, as we speak, is together with a professional staff organization, is embarking on a sort of a campaign to portray what the job looks like, so we can attract new specialists, hopefully.
Great. Thank you. Great, and haven't you, Mr. Peet, as you represent the most important aviation news agency in Latin America, could you please elaborate on differences and similarities between Europe and Latin America vis-a-vis state management in aviation? Do people think the same way over there, or is it very different from here?
Well, thank you, Kostas, for allowing me to be here. I think it's my third event in the last 10 days. I was at CAF, and then just came back from Kazakhstan, where we had the ICAO trip seminar, and now here. So, and I was very interested in the regional aspects. And Latin America it's a very, very weird place, and it's a very challenging place for the wrong reasons. And that was particularly proven during COVID. It's a region that mostly speaks the same language. Yet it was one of the regions where it was truly hard to get all stakeholders to be in line, and I think they failed during COVID, because you had, for instance, 3-4 countries that remained completely open, where COVID, I'm not going to say they were in denial, but basically they didn't let the industry stop because their economies couldn't sustain that. That was Mexico, Brazil, the Dominican Republic initially, and they remain open. It was amazing that I went to like 4 conferences, regional conferences there at a time when nobody was getting together, and it was quite shocking, because then you had the other extreme in the same region, people who speak the same language and different approaches. I remember landing in Santiago in Chile, and the airport was turned into a hospital. Basically, the Ministry of Health was running the place, and not civil aviation authorities. The idea was they didn't want you to bring COVID, yet I spoke to, if I remember right, 8 people, different people. I was coming from Greece. They wouldn't accept the European Union vaccine certificates because they wanted to know when you had every single shot, and it didn't matter to them that you had the last one, which was the one that was giving you immunity. They wanted to see that you were vaccinated before, and they would let you in. It took me about 3.5 hours to get through the airport. I would say that it's very challenging. There's also, and I'm going to tap into the financial aspects as well. It's a complete multifaceted financial model, and it's changing. It continues to change because you always see the political temptation of regaining terrain in running airports. There are countries that want to go back to administering, and governments, states, that want to go back to administering airports. There's always that threat. There's been huge investment of large, very large, especially European groups. What I cover, what I always talk about, what I always write about, is how other regions, yes, it is, we're sort of focused on Latin America, but Latin American aviation first has a huge role model, which is the US, because of the market that it represents. Most of the highest traffic is towards the US. Then the Europeans show the validity of regional, how to operate regionally, and then you have, of course, the influence of Spain and Portugal to a great extent, because it's kind of the bridge with Europe and to follow the European steps into that. But then you have other actors important, Australasia, which is growing in its links with Latin America, with South America, because you have very large operators such as LATAM and Avianca now, which is becoming this group ABRA, right? Which is a new emerging. I mean, Avianca was already pretty big, but it's becoming even bigger because it's going into Brazil. They just appointed a new CEO who was the former CEO of Gol, which is one of the largest carriers in Brazil. So it's a very challenging, changing part of the world, and I think there's a bit of a sense of failure in the sense that if you go back to 2013, ICAO used Latin America to bring together all the regional actors and to try to put out a model for really strengthening the voice of regional aviation beyond the region, beyond Latin America, and it was a meeting, if I recall right, it was in Mexico, and because that's one of the regional office of ICAO. Basically, they wanted to take this, but nothing really has happened. And I think there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of information sharing, the aspects of attracting talent, of keeping people, bringing in new. It's very difficult. Civil aviation is still very much linked to the military side of aviation. Mostly you find in countries, the civil aviation directors are, retired Air Force generals. Most of them, it's their last sort of stage in their professional career. So there's a bit of I would say a big challenge. Now, in closing, I would say I was pretty optimistic after CAF, because CAF showed that it is truly important to have regions. It was only because of the regions that we came out with a declaration after that. I don't remember, but it was 3.5 hours, 4 hours on the Friday. I, like many of the people attending, I thought the US had a point. The US had a point in putting forward their concerns in terms of sharing technology and being in a rules-based. Why? Because Latin America especially has shown that at times it's very difficult to go in there with the best of good faith and remain there, because there are actors there that are very far from good faith. I'm Canadian. by citizenship. And I remember Canada had a huge fight with Venezuela because of Air Canada. They wouldn't get their, they wouldn't get their money back when flying to Caracas. And they still have to go back there. While TAP and Iberia just announced in the last 3 months that they're going back, they're flying back to Caracas. Now, Venezuela is kind of an extreme model, but it plays a huge influence. And then, it regionally, I think it has its challenges, but I'm optimistic in the sense that I think the regionally, I would say, in a very surrealistic, from the point of view, Latin America always thinks of being way ahead of Africa. I saw an African continent very well organized. The last events in Africa have shown that they're truly coming together in a much faster way than Latin America. Latin America looks down on Africa. And if they respect it, it's only because they say, oh, well, they're closer to Europe. Europe has to deal with them, and Europe it's willing to. But more than that, I would say Africa is really working hard. You saw the leadership of South Africa. I was pretty impressed with the leadership of the UK. Now that they're starting a new position within the industry outside the EU, but yet they were pretty advancing and progressive. And then tapping on my recent experience in Central Asia, Kazakhstan is playing a fantastic role in terms of regional leadership. It was a huge IKEA event, and yet I'm not going to criticize, but maybe you would allow me because I'm a journalist, and we like to criticize, and we love headlines, right? We fall always for the temptation of headlines. I always say that if journalists wouldn't exist, if headlines was part of the 10 sins, but because it's a temptation we can't resist, and yet it was an IKEA event. It was a huge investment by the Kazakh government. And the presence of IKEA should have been greater. And I think it's because we need to bring more actors, bring them together better, and bring them to really coordinate themselves. And why do I say this? Mostly because, as I said, we look for the headlines. I'm thinking about the headlines of tomorrow. My headlines are unmanned systems. What's going to happen with that? We have an emerging international organization, which is JARIS, 65 countries, 2 European huge bodies are part of it already. They're hosting 2 biannual meetings. They're working with all the civil aviation authorities that want to work in terms of, bringing all the regulations, because you need to have like a baseline. Because this is really a new chapter, a new frontier of aviation, and I see that we're not so fast in grasping that. And then you got ETOL, right? ETOL is going to be another huge chapter. So I think there's more coordination to do, and there's also a need to be more dynamic. Aviation has grown, has advanced, because it has had the impetus and I think the hearts of people. We want to be there. I just had a very long conversation with Mehmet, who's here present, and he gave me a fantastic line: your destination is your geography. And the world will continue to have geography. We'll never, the world might change, might have less water, but we will never have a lack of geography. And I think we need to understand that it's going to be neat always to have people coordinated, and I think there's still, we have to come closer together. People need to understand where they are at, what role they have to play, because for instance at CAF it was five days of debates and deliberations. It was a very long conference, and by the end, well, we still have the strength for 4 hours of paragraph in, paragraph out to come for a declaration that was not, as you said, as progressive as a guiding line when it comes to the future. It's kind of weak in terms of goals, but there is a goal, and that's important. And we need to keep those goals, and we need to look for them and we need to maintain them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Coming back to you, typical Greek person would be in favor of aviation. They realize the benefits of aviation for tourism. We're a country with so many different islands, so air connectivity is of utmost importance for our country. Reason why I'm saying so, is it the same case in Romania? Because you mentioned a very interesting point about lobbying vis-à-vis the European Commission. So if our people are in favor of aviation, it seems that somebody else may not be. Predominantly in Northern Europe we see a totally different attitude of citizens vis-à-vis aviation. So what can we do in order to change this attitude? What do you think?
It depends from what angle you are looking. From my point of view, there is no one, and you can find no one that is against aviation. And I'm telling you why. It's the same thing that I told you before. You cannot find someone that don't need to go from point A to point B, or from point B to point C, or wherever you want, faster and faster and faster. The speed, it's the disease of this century from my point of view, if we can say like that. So everyone is focused on this. Everyone wants to reach a point faster every time. So here I will not agree with you, with the point that someone is against aviation or it's against of developing aviation. No one can be against that, because he's gonna try to open a war with the Titans. So if you are a realistic person, you cannot open the war with the Titans. Only if you want to lose from the beginning, if you are sure that you want to lose. Usually when I'm between the lines, I'm choosing very wisely my wars, and I don't open a war until I'm not sure that I'm gonna win. I believe this is the normal way that we should think. And coming back to what means tourism, you are worldwide recognized. Greece is recognized worldwide for tourism. Also, Romania, it's a touristic country, and we are looking forward to improve this because we have a lot of things to show, same like you, and of course, aviation is sustaining and it's bringing tourism to next level, but also you need to take in consideration that the economical reasons and also what comes to business is going also to the area of aviation. So I'm coming to the beginning, and I repeat what I said. I think you cannot find someone that is against aviation, against developing aviation. From my point of view, it's stupidity. To be against, it's like you are turning the car of the time aside, then you want to go back. You cannot do that.
So are you optimistic about the future?
I'm, if I can say like that, usually I like to say that I'm pessimist, that means the realistic optimist. But of course we need to be optimistic. We need to be optimistic every day and in every moment, because otherwise we cannot succeed. If we are not confident first in ourselves, we cannot give confidence to the others. Very important is what my colleague said earlier, that it's about cooperation. This is the key of success, cooperation in my point of view. And also you need together, when I'm talking about aviation, one common voice. Because if you have one common voice, you will be more stronger. You see, it's very simple. Sometimes when you are a manager, there are a lot of managers here. I like to say manager to the CEOs. You need to take decision. The worst decision is the indecision. Even if it's good or wrong, the decision that you're going to take, you need to take it. But you see, the more important thing is that people understand that it's a person that's going to take the decision. A person, not 20, not 30, not 80. Everyone to be a leader or a boss or a CEO, as you want to say, from the bottom to the top. But all of them need to be under one. It's because it's the same thing that we talked earlier. You go together on one voice. And when you speak on one voice and you come together with all the association, with all the everything that is belonging to the nation, you're going to be powerful in that moment. If you are divided, you're going to lose for the This is a thing that I can assure you. So, I'm going to respond to you in 3 words for your questions. Yes, we are interested in tourism. Yes, we are interested in aviation. Yes, we need to cooperate and to be a force together. Yeah. It's very, very simple because you see, the things are as much as complicated as we want to complicate them. And they're as much as simple as we want to simplify them. Everything comes back to us. It's the same thing when we don't take decisions are coming back to us. The worst part is coming back, not the good part. Yes? This is what's usually happening in life. Because of that, I believe, and that's why I asked also to Costas to found the solution to, and I want to thank him again that he brings us together here. I hope he will raise the frequency of these kind of events in the future, and also will extend the audition, even if I'm going to hold or not governmental position, you can count on me. I'm aviation people, man, and I believe people with common ideas and with common principles, strong principles, will come together. This will bring strength to all of us. Yes. And I reiterate the thing that I said to you. We need one, but in front of that one, you need all. And behind that one. It's like you are a general without majors and without soldiers. If you don't have everything compressed behind. In that moment, for sure, we're going to move also anyone that we're going to talk to, because we're going to come with powerful arguments. Every discussion should be based on arguments, not on, because, and of course, every debate usually brings progress. This is the most important thing. And also what we need to take in consideration that lately, because as my colleague said, because AI, because digitalization, and because a lot of other things, we do not take care as much as we should about the human resource. This is the most important thing, and is the most hardest resource to be handled, because people is having emotion, having problems, having who knows what, and you need to know how to deal. The difference is that a very good person, a very wise person, can raise the level of a normal person until one point, and after that you cannot, because he touched his limit. But in the same time, what is more than strange, because this is humanity, is that a person that is evilish, if I can say it that way, it can destroy any kind of person, and bring him to the lowest point. This is the same thing when you act alone and when you act together. It's all the same way.
Joining forces.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Andreas, if I can have 2 points to what the minister said on the titles war, let's say, which I fully agree. I mean, if you look at Europe, which is, let's say, the most advanced, and where apparently people, and as you said earlier, Northern Europe, they're more willing to take a harder hit on aviation. In the latest EU census, where they asked, would you spend more to go on a sustainable flight? Would you pay more? The answer was 1 out of 3 said yes, and it wasn't even, you know, how much. They didn't say it's €1, €10, €50. So actually the sentiment is not that strong. Well, politicians obviously, you know, like promoting, etc. And the second thing, which again comes out from what the minister said, is that, you know, when you look at GDP and how much GDP aviation creates for the countries, it's crazy, you know. I mean, if you look at what they're doing in the Netherlands, I'd like to see and track how GDP works for the Netherlands over the next 4 or 5 years, you know, closing down Schiphol and all of that. So I think, you know, maths and common logic is just to bring it down and make people more pragmatic and understand that you need to integrate aviation, support it, to make sure that, you know, we have a future.
Great. And building on that, and given the momentum now for Athens International Airport, you are ahead of one of the biggest steps in your corporate history. How does this relate to stakeholder management? Are you going to become more inclusive? Given if you are going to be in the stock exchange, it's going to be different?
Interesting question. What do you mean inclusive? Do you mean?
I mean, in terms of stakeholder management, in terms of governance and so on, is it going to be different from now? Is it going to be?
Well, you know, I've listed many companies. I used to be a bad person. I used to be an investment banker. And, you know, now I've converted to the righteous path, so I'm a nice person, so to speak. And I've listed many companies. It does change. It does change how companies operate. You're more in the spotlight. Of course, you know, airports obviously in the spotlight by default because, you know, passengers go. But now, you know, every single investor in the whole world will be looking, you know, at what you're doing. Governance, yes, you know, if you're a listed company, there's more governance, which, you know, depending on how you feel about governance, too heavy, too light, or whatever, you know, that's a big debate to have. It does bring some type of discipline. It does also bring some type of restrictions. It will change in our particular airport. It will change the balance because the private shareholder will own more. So it's interesting how this will develop over time in the sense that Athens Airport has been one of the most successful private-public partnerships in Greece to date, if not the most successful. We're changing this balance, so we'll see how it plays out. Of course, we do have a very good investor, so that will be interesting. I saw Mr. Zinellis here, who again himself has private shareholders and it's worked very well for Greece. So in general, aviation has been a very positive story for Greece. And in a sense, you know, the airport is going into a new phase, not only because of the listing, which I would say is a smaller part, but because we're developing significantly, we're growing. I think the Director General was saying, you know, we have come back, and it was Salvatore who said we'll come back to pre-pandemic levels. Actually, in Greece, in Athens, we have passed Greece, so we're embarking in this huge project going from 26 million passenger capacity to 33. So all this, you understand, being listed as well, makes it even harder. So for instance, let's say you have a 3-month delay, you know, our CEO and CFO will be on the analyst call explaining why we have a 3-month delay, and this, you know, makes things more difficult. But on the other hand, it puts some discipline, it makes you make sure you have to deliver on your targets. So it's an interesting balance, and we'll have to see how it goes. But by and large, looking at with my previous hat, if you look at the Greek state companies that have been listed, I think they have been rationalized. I'm thinking of Hellenic Telecoms, I'm thinking of Public Power Corporation, which are completely different and would not be the companies they are today if they had not been privatized and listed, right?
Great, thank you. Coming to you, Theodore, you mentioned about your son, but he's not so much interested in becoming an aeronautical engineer. I was thinking of the big resignation phenomenon. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but younger people do not want to get into jobs or they leave jobs that they regard as relatively underpaid or with lots of responsibility, more than what they would wish to take. And what would be the role of IFATSEA? How could IFATSEA build a narrative to persuade people that it's worth getting into a sector?
Good question. I'm not sure I have the answer. But I think since we're talking about cooperation and mutual understanding, I think having a shared vision in the industry would be a big promoter. If you are to have job appreciation, you have to have visibility, a status, a promise behind the job that you will choose. Because, as you said, the younger engineers will jump from one position to the other because they start from being field service engineers, let's say, to begin with, and then they get into managerial positions. And you see around the aviation ecosystem now, a lot of younger, managers are in the age group about 30, 40, somewhere there. It's so if you only see your job in terms of remuneration, how much money you make out of it, then you change jobs like most managers do, from the shoe industry to some other one, I don't know, naval construction, whatever. Now the equation here with regard to the technical stuff is that there is no visibility to the management. In our the ground aviation system, we have the air traffic controllers who are very prominent, and if they raise a question and they are not heard, they probably proceed to industrial action, some other sort of pressure, and the impact of their activities, social, will be immediately visible. Now, when you have now the engineers, the ATSEP on the air traffic safety, electronic professionals in the background, whatever the pressure they try to exert, or whenever they try to address the management does not have time for them, I'm afraid to say. And that goes also to international organizations. That was the case until about 10 years ago. Now, for example, IFATSEA has observer status in ICAO, and we are heard in the European Commission. We are included as advisors, if you like, in the CESAR environment. But I come back again. If we look at it the way the consultation from the current manager of AMSPs or CAAs and other adjacent industries like even the aircraft maintenance, because the aircraft maintenance you can't get now engineers to look after aircraft technicians and avionics. If there was a sort of better communication and consultation, no agenda, just exchange of ideas, then I think we would both learn from it, the management and the staff. And I will give you an example on remote hours. In 2012, we had our conference in India, and one of major manufacturers, Pioneer at the time, came and presented to the engineers now who look after the system the new remote tower architecture. Okay, microphones, cameras there, and the controller working position. That's all right when everything goes well. But when you want to monitor the performance of the system while the controller is working, there was no ATSEP working position, technical supervision position. I said, what do you do here? And they came back to us, we had a sort of round of consultation, and now there is a position that the engineer will use to oversee, but he's being invisible now from the loop. Now we have networked systems over SWIM, the system-wide information management. Again, we talked a few weeks ago in Bucharest. We talked with the manufacturers again. We had air traffic controllers, engineers, ATSEP, and the manufacturers, and we had an open discussion like this one here. And then we raised issues. And one of them was cybersecurity, as I mentioned earlier. And they listened to us, and they started bringing in before even the European Commission has designed it, or as so presented as a requirement, the industry is ahead. However, as I said earlier, operational requirements for every system, technical specification, this is a major change. There is regulation for that. And that includes a planning for training, and that is for air traffic controllers and engineers. Now, as I'm portraying to you, I've spent what, about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to explain to you the concept. Do we usually get communication with management for 10 minutes to express that? Very rarely. And I'll give you a little example that I heard yesterday, and I liked it very much. A few years ago, one of my colleagues went to Japan, and they said that for every technician, engineer, or any worker in the factory of Daihatsu, I think, or something like that, there was a fish over it, over his position, you know. And every time they had an idea, they just wrote on the fish, you know. I don't know how one did the fish or the fish, you know. He wrote that. And when the employee came up with a set of ideas, he got a bonus, a reward. You know, that's motivation. Now, in closing, as we speak, IFATSEA are currently, together with the air traffic controllers, the two professions that are mandated by law in Europe. Under ICAO, there is a competency and training scheme for IFATSEA, but at the moment as we speak, although it has been decided by the ICAO Assembly, they haven't been included in Annex 1 alongside the ATCOs and the pilots and the avionics engineers. This is something that we are currently discussing with the European Union and ICAO. If this goes ahead, then that will be a major element of motivation for, you know, young engineers, you know, to participate and be attracted. And as you mentioned earlier, retained, because if you don't keep them, you know, motivated, then you lose them. And then it is very difficult to recover from the lack of this personnel.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff, how relevant is all this discussion for Latin America? Big resignation, environmental sensitivity vis-a-vis aviation? Or is it a totally different world?
No, I was taking some notes. I was not texting well my companion because I wanted to. Actually, I'm glad you're mentioning that because I think, generally speaking, Latin America and other regions that I've seen closely understand one thing, and I tap onto what the Vice Minister here, Bogdan, said. Nobody's against aviation because everybody understands that aviation is a force for good. It's a force of good, and it has shown an incredible resilience. It has its dynamism. It's 100 years, you know, and look at where we are. Just 100 years. So I do believe that nobody is against aviation, but there are forces that emerge from time to time. It's true that they're truly colorful to the point that they have to choose a child to be against aviation. Greta, right? They needed a child. And I say it from the communications point of view. We journalists, we looked at this and we said, this has not a lot of value because they needed a child. There was nobody that was hurt. There was nobody, you thought, well, why didn't they show the people that maybe survived an accident? Why didn't they show, I don't know, there were so many things. But to us journalists, we looked at it, and I commented this with people in aviation, coming from the social sciences, and so I can be a bit more, you know, hippie. So I said, and they looked at me, I said, you're right, yeah, it's you know, it's an incredible slog to have a child to be put there. So I agree with that, with nobody's against aviation, but there is always interest to be against aviation, and we need to be wary of that. We need to be ready for that. And I think COVID is a great baseline. There's a lot of discussion that look at all that happened when planes were not in the sky. I mean, the birds came back, the animals were blah, blah, and there's always people who are going to make the case. So you cannot forget about that. Latin America, in terms of, I would like to center in Europe, because I share a lot of the sort of both sides. I've lived here, I've lived there, and one of the things that I always keep telling my European friends, colleagues, is that, and I want to be brief, the world is watching Europe. Europe has a lot of problems, and Europeans tend to think that you are a very troubled region when you look at yourselves. But the world is watching Europe because it's a great place, and it's a model. But it's a model for the right regulations, but from Latin America at times there's a look at it saying it's a model not to be over-regulated. So that's a key point of what you were saying in terms of be careful and because other parts of the world need Europe. I think it's a great example, but at the same time there's always a look at not wanting to be like Europe in the things that you talk a lot that it's overdone, right? And then as from a region that there's huge disparities, huge gaps in terms of social development, and I want to touch on sustainability. I think aviation has a really, really big role to play in showing more its goods. At another event here, I said, aviation has, I come from mining. My career, before I came to aviation, I did mining. Mining is truly concerned about human rights. Aviation does a ton of human rights. One has to think only about the planes in Afghanistan and people embracing planes to get out of there when there was a need to get out of there. And aviation played a great role. Yet I've never seen a huge discussion over the benefit, how aviation has benefited human rights. And I think sustainability poses a great opportunity. Why? Because SAF is just SAF. There are other aspects, but to be brief, SAF is a great opportunity for the world to be equal, to be more equal. All the regions are going to need it. All the regions will have to produce it, and those countries that are at the forefront need to understand that other regions of the world will, for aviation to keep it. And I think aviation can sort of leave or give that to the world, and aviation is going to be even, more liked because of the possibility if we do things right. If we show that SAF can be a force for development in different regions of the world, if we truly share in the right way what needs to be shared, because everybody will need it. So I think, I want to close on that, I think aviation should look more at the good it's done and the good that it can do in the future, because it's a force for good.
Great, thank you. So wrapping it up, just some final words from you as key takeaways.
I was listening also to all my colleagues earlier, and also I was listening to Jeff. I believe if we are looking backwards, I believe no one could expect to happen to the aviation sector what happened with COVID. If someone if someone in this room, if he's having another opinion, I'm glad to hear it, but at least from my point of view, if anyone came to me when I was the CEO of the National Airport Company to say to me, oh, you see, next year you're going to have no flight. And I was, for sure, I started like Mehmet to laugh. And I said to him, go out of my office, I have things to do today. But you see, this is bringing me close to what Theodore said, and not only also what the CEO from the airport said. It's that it's about recovery, it's about resilience. You see, in that period, affected a lot, the COVID period affected a lot all the aviation industry, not only, but especially the aviation industry. That a lot of people that worked inside this industry migrate to other industries because they needed to give exams, to have certificates periodically, yes? And they had no expectation because they had no nothing to be known for the future, nothing predictable. They have no predictability, and in that moment they migrate. And I don't think that you can go to a person that changed his and he made the professional reconversion, say come back to be an engineer, come back to work, I don't know, in handling or so on. You won't work. Because people gonna ask you, do you know when it's gonna be the next pandemic? Who knows what gonna be? Who gonna affect? So because of that, we need, as Theodore said, we need to have the backup and to have the recovery process very well done and very good think, because you need to act in the second moment. Even you cannot expect the second moment. You should be capable to act instantaneous. That is the hardest part when you don't have prepared people. And it's more hard when you don't have people at all. It's close to impossible. So it's like in society, the base of the society is the culture and all that means to the studies. So if you don't have a culture and don't have education, you cannot have a quite society. It's the same thing in aviation. If you don't have the basic things for going forward and to have progress, it won't be a sustainable progress. This is the most important thing, and I'm coming back. Even if we are going for digitalization, for remote towers, this is a normal thing that we need to do. Not should do, need to do. It's a must. But this decision needed to be taken wisely, not only to be taken. We are going back to the human resource. This is the most important. And I believe everything starts from the human resource. If the human resource is prepared, the human resource it's interested to do that job, as Theodore said, and so on. So, as a conclusion, if I can say like that, with or without us, but I would like to think and to consider that also we should be a part of this development in the future of aviation. With or without us, the aviation going to develop.
Thank you very much. Riccardo?
Well, I think to answer the minister is that there's no one in the room who had forecasted COVID, because if they did, they'd be multi-billionaires, right?
For sure.
So that's why.
That's why I wanted to find that one.
So look, just 2 points from me. I think aviation is obviously at crossroads. There's so many things happening at the same time. There's got so many challenges. Looking back, I've said before, there's not been a period in time where we had so many challenges at the same time. I think what I liked a lot about what Jeff said is, and if I can reframe it in a different word, you look at ESG, we've been focusing on the E. I think as aviation, we've got the G, we've got very good governance, but we haven't been focusing on the S, the social impact of aviation, all the good we have been doing. And I think maybe from a communication standpoint, but also for ourselves, we can also start focusing on the S to bring people in and make them wear your nice calces, socks, and so on and so forth.
I can leave them. I haven't worn them.
Don't let them wash, right?
No.
So I will stop there.
Please, because Kosa's about to kill you now. So.
No, then I will continue.
Thank you. Theodore, 30 seconds.
Oh my God. Okay. I think I make my case with the lack of ATSEA and attracting people. But what we do at the moment is that we're trying to find marginal, changes to improve performance, safety, if you like. I will give you 2 punchlines on how to improve safety by 13%, and how to address something that I was discussing with Mehmet last year, performance, reduce cost, if you like. The first one is with regard to my profession. There was a study that is still pending since 2013 that was done by the European Commission and 2 European institutions, NLR, the Netherlands Research Laboratory, and ECORIS, which is a specialized agency, that came up to the conclusion that implementing a regulatory scheme for ATSEA could improve safety up to 13%. So maybe this would be a good start, just to take it into account. The other one has to do with numbers, and I will finish very quickly. At the moment, from the European figures for the cost, the ANSP costs are 6%, 6% of the ticket price. And 70% of that 6% is salaries. And of course, investments come after that. This is the case here. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the outages of, on the delays of the air traffic flow management, due to the outages of systems, they're about 6% in 2020, I think. Which means that if we look after the maintenance of the systems and increase their availability, we can reduce that 6% of the total delays due to CNS systems and services. And that goes through the engineers. So, if we listen to them, maybe everybody can benefit, transversally. Thank you.
10 seconds.
Yes, 10 seconds, please.
I'm going to touch on just the pandemic. I think you just said, when is the next pandemic going to happen? Well, we don't know, but it's going to happen. And I think the best approach we could have is, we don't know whether the next accident is going to happen, but it might happen, right? And we're all ready for that. So we just need to be ready for that. And for that, it's important to do one big thing, at least from my point of view, is if there's something that the pandemic showed us, is that when we had a common message, things were advanced, we're done, and we were able to deal with governments and tell them, listen, we're important, you need us.